Hello, and welcome to One Journey featuring Mike Jones. My name is Doris Davenport, your host for the hour. I'm so excited to bring you this fascinating gentleman. This is a man who is a retired teacher by way of Wisconsin. He is one of 16 children, and what a journey he has been on, from being one of 16 to the father of 4. We're going to talk about this journey from the beginning to today. Welcome, Mike Jones. How are you?
I am doing great. Thank you for that wonderful introduction.
You are so welcome. We are here to talk about this journey that's brought you to today. Tell our listeners just what is Mike's vegan journey?
Well, the journey is one that has taken place. The vegan journey part of it has taken place since 2015 when I declared on Thanksgiving of that year that I was going to go vegan. And it has been a wonderful journey ever since then, just of uncovering and unlayering so many different things and facets about my life. So,
what actually prompted you to go vegan?
I actually wanted the challenge. I wanted the discipline, and I had an addiction to sugar that I knew I wanted to break, and I wanted to, lose weight and do all those things and get back to my athletic self. And so I took that challenge on in a way that ridding myself of carbs and some other things first initially, and taking a lot of apple cider vinegar. I didn't know anything about anything at that point. I just did it. Someone suggested it, so I just did it, and I found out later what it actually does to the body. And slowly, as I became more disciplined, I said, well, let me try to go more into that realm and not harm sentient beings, and I did. So.
Wow, that seems like a journey of who you are. I remember my father brought us up that way with the 2 tablespoons or 1 tablespoon diluted with water of the apple cider vinegar.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we did that young. It kind of mellows out the alkaline or the acids in your stomach. Mm-hmm. What exactly does the vinegar do?
I am not 100% sure, even to this very day.
But it helps.
But I know that it is something that they've used for centuries.
They really have.
And they traveled with it on their vessels.
Well, I understand also that when you look at ancient menus that in the biblical times, the soldiers ate a lot of lentils. This was considered one of the superfoods. Now, in talking with you earlier, I know that as you talk about this journey, you were really interested in finding healthier options when you were cutting out sugar.
Yes.
What were some of those healthier options that you considered?
Chickpeas was one of those. I leaned on my brother, who's a 40-year vegan chef, Chef Sadakia, and he showed me how to. He actually verbally instructed me, because I was living in the Virgin Islands at the time, and he was still in Chicago, and he instructed me on how to sprout lentils, or soak the lentils. And because I was in the Virgin Islands, they started growing these tails, and I called him back and said, "Is this okay? Is this okay?" And he laughed just like that, and he said, "Yes, those are fine."
Those are okay. You can have those.
Yes.
So what was it like for you to be on this journey, unveiling kind of who you are, right? Because when you go on a journey of food and looking at what you can eat and what you can't eat, you can't help but do a little bit of introspection.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and in that, some people understand this when I say this, and some people don't. When you eliminate fear, when you eliminate anxiety from your life, you begin to see more of yourself. So I stopped eating animals that were fearful and who wanted to live, but were led into a CAFO, or all the different ways that you can say humanely or inhumanely they still die a death. I was not eating that, and so once I eliminated that from my diet, that took me on another journey to find out what my own fears were and my own anxieties were. And that was an unveiling of layers inside. And it led me to meditation. It led me to a lot of different...
So you must have spent time reading some of Deepak Chopra.
Yes, yes. And that came about more recently. That wasn't part of the initial journey at all. But it certainly elevated my thinking to bring that as part of my journey.
Awesome. That is absolutely awesome. Now, you became more focused in the world on love and light, and what did that do with people around you?
My students were probably the first ones to respond and say, boy, you certainly are different, Mr. Jones, through Facebook and just the commentary, the things that I would post. And then when I did a video on sprouting lentils, or I would talk in a certain way, they would recognize that that's a different person. Even my own children, you know, they know the dad that they grew up with, and they just kind of said, Dad, you know, we knew you as this guy. We don't know who this guy is right now. And it's been a beautiful synergy because it's all about discovering. And you know, the more you discover about yourself, the more you can give that back out to the positive into the world.
Well, let's talk about discovery. What exactly did you discover on this journey toward, I know food has been a big thing for you, but you went from food to dessert. Fudge, and to be specific. And I want to hear all about fudge and fudge making and all the health benefits of fudge. But let's just start with, what did you discover? What have you discovered so far?
The simplicity,
yourself?
I think that's a good question. And I think it's the simplicity of things that, you know, like I said, I can hear Emerson in my mind saying, simplify, simplify, simplify. And, you know, and it just really was peeling back the layers, taking one ingredient and mixing it with another ingredient to make sure that there was no gums, no preservatives. There was just a simple concept. And when I did that, my body responded very well to that. And people say, listen to your body. Well, if you are full of Cheetos or a snack of some type, okay, that your body's still going to talk to you, but it's only going to ask for more of the things that that might be not beneficial for you. But you can reverse that and put the healthier things into your body and still listen to your body and crave lettuce. People don't understand that until you simplify what it is that you're putting into your body.
But how do you do that, Mike? I mean, how do you educate people? I know I've been on a quest for a long time. I love ice cream, but I don't like how ice cream makes me feel after I eat it. So for the longest time, I would look at the ingredients, and anytime I see a huge paragraph, I ignore it. I'm down to one ice cream that I find. It's got 5 ingredients in it, but I can't find one without the gum.
Oh.
How do you educate people about ingredients and just the kind of harm that?
Well, that's another good question. When I was in high school as a teacher, one of the last clubs I formed was a nutrition club. And then we learned to determine what a real food was versus a fake food, especially if it was called healthy. So those simple things, like you're on that path already. You narrowed it down to everything except the gums, okay? So once what my curiosity was to, if it wasn't on the label and I had a taste for something, I learned to make it. Avocado ice cream was the big thing for me. That was my struggle. My last struggle was with gelato, with dairy, right?
Right.
So I found the recipe online, and that recipe, once I made avocado ice cream out of 4 ingredients, then I figured out I was eating for taste and I was eating for texture, and I got it. And then once I satisfied that, then it led me to other things. So if I didn't see what I wanted on the shelf, I went into my kitchen and I figured out a way to satisfy that taste. Once I grew out of the taste and the texture mode, then I started eating for nutrition without compromising taste.
So how did a teacher of 29 years, child of 16 siblings, and father of 4, you're retired now, obviously, because you couldn't do all this and work. Well, you could. I do know some people who are trying to do both. But so how did you decide that you're going to make fudge? Why fudge? I mean, when everything I've heard you talk about up to this point is about health and nutrition and how important it is to know what you're putting in your body. That doesn't seem to equal fudge to me. Because when I hear fudge, I think sugar, sugar, sugar.
And you're right, and that always comes with explanation.
Yes.
Because everybody thinks that it's a lot of sugar loaded up with it. And I've looked at other ingredients of fudge. This is based on hemp protein. And it was
hemp protein.
Hemp protein. And originally, I just started mixing the hemp protein and adding a few things to it just so that I could put it in after my workout. And then I had I was using like peanut butter powder, hemp protein, hemp oil, maple syrup, monk fruit sweetener. I was using all kinds of different things, agave. And then I learned about each of these different things. You know, agave is still highly processed and can eventually lead to some long-term health issues. Maple syrup, I found out, was probably a better sweetener. Monk fruit still goes through some refined process, but it doesn't spike your insulin as regular refined sugar does. So when you learn to eliminate refined things, it brought me onto that journey of eliminate and add, and then it got it very simple. The coconut oil, when I added that to it, made it very sustainable, and the sweeteners and the combinations just made it good to take after my workouts. So after my workouts, I would make this concoction and I would just take it. And then when I started adding some cocoa and some other things, cacao I started with, and then adding cocoa to it and the other things, and then it just turned into this. Somebody tasted it and said, "That's
Really?
fudge."
Will it take the place of my coffee in the morning?
It certainly can. It can take place of anything.
When you say cacao, that in there, I mean, does it have as much caffeine as a cup of coffee would have?
No, it does not.
Okay.
No.
Okay. So I might need 2 tablespoons of fudge.
You might. But it depends on the state of your body. You know, if you're like I have done many cleanses, I've done many detoxes. So I was never a coffee drinker. My students would come in the morning and I'd be, hey, let's go. And they'd ask, how many cups of coffee did you have? I go, none. They go, what?
What?
So I've just naturally fed off of, high energy, and I was an extrovert. I grabbed energy from the students and the energy from who my audience was. Now living alone for quite some time, it was hard to kind of figure that out. But so I've now become an ambivert, I guess is the term they use. And but the fudge came about just because I just wanted to see what other people thought about it. But I still make my version pretty plain and simple. But people love this stuff. I mean, it tastes really good.
All this talk about health and nutrition, did you ever have a weight problem? You look like the picture of health.
Well, there is a wonderful before and after photo. I didn't think I did, but when I looked at the photo, I thought, wow, I thought I hit it well into my head, and I looked at the picture, and it was like, no, you didn't hide a whole lot there, buddy. People look at the before and after pictures now, and they said, that was you? That's one of their first comments. And I said, yeah, that's me. But, you are who you feel inside. And so
You are who you feel inside. So on these vegan recipes that led you to the fudge, what kind of ingredients are you putting in this fudge that's vegan?
Well, all plants are vegan, right? So the ingredient list is pretty simple. Like I said, the hemp protein is the big thing. The cocoa, maple syrup as a sweetener, and coconut oil.
And coconut oil.
Oh, and I do throw a pinch of sea salt in there, but I've reduced that greatly for less and less because you don't really need that in there.
Why do you think people should take this fudge? I mean, what are the health benefits?
So one of the things that I was on this journey, I discovered hemp protein. Soy protein is vegan. However, the extraction process of soy uses a chemical, and some of it is chemically engineered, has the GMO, which the majority of it in the United States is, in North America is. So I didn't go down that path. Whey is not vegan. And pea protein isolate is another extraction, but it also doesn't have a great taste for me. It just doesn't agree with me anyways. So when I was at a store and I saw this on the shelf and it said mixes well with anything, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna put that to the test. And that started the curiosity, which led to this journey and this discovery. So what I found out is that hemp protein helps fight sugar cravings.
Really?
It helps fight
directly?
Sugar. Yeah, it helps reduce sugar cravings. It helps regulate your blood pressure. It helps regulate your blood sugar. It has been used with a lot of combinations and other proteins that people use. It has the omegas in it. It's a wonderful plant to use and to heal the body.
So this sounds like if you are, like a lot of people are not full-blown diabetic, but they may have received a diagnosis of, I think they call it pre-diabetes even, I think is the name of it. Would this benefit people who have diabetes?
I believe so. Now, I've never been diagnosed as a diabetic, so I'm not giving anybody medical advice.
Of course not, of course not.
But the studies have shown that it has done very good people have responded very well, and we know that those that type 2 diabetes can be reversed. We've heard of people doing that on a plant-based diet. So this would be a great partnership to have with somebody who has reversed it or someone who is looking to reverse it.
How do you make fudge? So I get, like you were talking about sprouting earlier. I've sprouted over the years. I understand that process. When you think about fudge, I think of a big mixing bowl like you were describing, just mixing, but you're making fudge for a lot of people, so that's a bit bigger than a mixing bowl.
I can tell you that was one of the huge hurdles. And the whole one choice, one step, one journey, it's all about just, putting it out there and taking the next step. So when I had to scale up, and I'm making this at my apartment, right, in a little glass bowl, stirring it up, making about 16 ounces at a time was what I was making. And that was, to go from that to the kitchen to where I am now was a big scare, was a scary step, but I took it. And I think I didn't ruin batches, but I learned a lot about fudge making at that particular time. Because if you asked me about fudge making, I had no idea. I was an English teacher. I was a regular guy, which is what I kept posting on my Instagram accounts and my Facebook accounts. I'm just an ordinary guy who's just curious, right? So now I learn a lot about, there's 6 ways that chocolate bonds and molds with certain things. It bonds with the sugar that you use. It bonds with the fat that you use. You can freeze it. You can do all these different things with it, and how the order of which you do the ingredients, all these things matter. And so I've learned a lot, and my sister-in-law has been a great help.
The wife of the vegan of 40 years.
Yes, and she's the pastry chef and a chocolatier, and an award-winning chocolatier or a pastry chef from the school where she got her, from Kennedy, I believe, where she got her certification. So every little bit that she had to share with me, I was like, okay, I'm gonna try this, I'm gonna try that. And making it for a large group of people was scary, but a step that I took. And if somebody said, if your dreams don't scare you, then you're not dreaming big enough. I understand what that means.
And it goes with your saying of, step outside of your fear, or conquer your fear.
Yeah. Right. And I when I came from the Virgin Islands, when I came to Jones College Prep, it was late in the year. I got hired late. And I stood in front of the door, and I didn't have my prep, I didn't have everything prepped like I wanted to. And I told myself, I said, if you can't walk into this classroom after teaching for, at that time, 20-some years, then you're not who you claim you are.
I know that feeling.
And so I walked in the door, and I gave a lesson that I had just on that moment thought about, and it was courage versus fear, which is courage is moving forward, not that we don't have fear, but it's despite the fear. It's just taking that next step. And you can ask that class just graduated now. They're now freshmen in college, and that was our theme. The whole year was courage versus fear. Courage
versus fear. Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. What keeps you going, Mike Jones? I mean, I know talking to entrepreneurs, all that it takes to have an entrepreneur gather that energy that's needed to keep putting one foot in front of the other and overcoming the challenges. I mean, when you think about a journey, there are mountains and valleys that people go through and over. And I know you must have faced some as an entrepreneur, but what keeps you going, and how do you face these challenges and overcome them?
It's just, you get on the mat and you cry. And then when you're done crying, you realize there's nobody coming through that door to come pick you up. So get yourself together and keep moving. Really? Were you ever a wrestler? I was not. You were not? You said mat now, so somebody could have said football, or you get back on the field. So what kind of sport were you thinking about? I actually go to the mat, which is on the ground. And for me, it was my yoga mat. But when that's a phrase, let's go to the mats. That's right, that's right. That means we're going to duke it out, and you duke it out with yourself. And that's right. And so I've been on that mat days at a time. There's been days, even before COVID, where I wouldn't leave my apartment, and I would just be in isolation. And in those dark moments, I would find the light, and then the light would come on, and I'd get up, and I would go and do what I needed to do, and that led to the next thing. And now, there's Facebook groups, and there's a lot of encouragement. Now I have a pretty good network of people that I can call if I need to say, hey, I'm feeling this, or I have this question, or I have this idea going on, and the more you expand, the more, which I believe you are ready for. because you have to be seasoned to get to that position. Even coming here today was a bit of a journey, but it led me to meet you, and this opportunity still existed, and it's just speaks to the journey that we're talking about right now.
Amen to that, I'll say. When people hear fudge for health, that takes a little bit getting used to. When people think about vegan fudge, that puts a whole nother dynamic on it. And I can imagine that because you were a vegan food person before you discovered vegan fudge, was it easy to get your taste buds acclimated to vegan food? Because vegan food doesn't really sound that interesting. I have begun to have what I call vegan weekends, where I eliminate meat from my diet and some dairy. But when you decided to become a vegan and moving over even to vegan fudge, what were some of the things that you had to do what were some of the foods you had to, or tastes you had to overcome, your dislike to some tastes? Was it easy for you?
Like I said, like I mentioned earlier, I think the biggest struggle I had was eating the gelato.
Yeah.
But I realized that I wanted the sweetness more than anything else. My body wanted the sweetness, and it was the texture.
Yeah.
But acclimating, I have a pretty good resource in my brother, who's a vegan chef for over 40 years. So
right. So he gave you his favorite recipes to start with.
There were a few
That's
things.
That's not fair.
So when I was on the island, when I was sprouting lentils, and I remember going around on the last day I was on the island, and I brought it to a couple of different restaurants and some cooks, and they said, "Wow, this is good stuff." And I said, "It's made out of lentils." They were like, "No way." It was still a meat-centric menu, and then they said, "Yeah, this is really good." I got offered a job as a cook. I said, "I'm not a cook," but the taste is just something that I would never say that anything that I've made. Now I've made some duds on some things, but the final products have all come out tasting very good. And now there's a plethora of very good tasting foods with simple ingredients, and that's been very helpful. And I think we talked about this earlier, that Dr. Sabi, the nutritional guide,
that's right,
was very helpful to keep things very simple, because people say, "Well, I could never eat from that list. It's so limiting." And I said, "But that's exactly what I needed, because too many choices, can be confounding, and then you don't know. You stand in front of your closet full of clothes, for hours.
Right.
But if you only have 3 or 4 outfits, the decision is pretty simple to make."
That's right.
So that guide was liberating, because my choices were narrow.
But that process you have of kind of process of elimination, if you will, with all of the ingredients in your food makes so much sense, because I don't think people really realize even the condiments. If you eliminate condiments, so much sugar in ketchup and mustard and mayonnaise and all of those different salad dressings.
High fructose corn syrup was the first thing to go. And so anything I looked at that had that on there, I was like, that's not it. And then you start working that down from there. So you mentioned the gums, now you've got it down to just the things that are gums, and you can still find the ones that are out there. And it's also fun to get a $15 ice cream maker and try to do it on your own.
Oh, hey, I'll have to try that.
Yeah.
I'll have to try that for sure.
So the kitchen for me is a creative space.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's a place to invite people in. The only thing about COVID is you can't invite people into your kitchen to play anymore. Yeah. And I'd like to know, we talked about those hills and valleys. How has COVID, if it has, impacted your fudge making?
Well,
are you able to produce as much and get it where you want it to go?
I am able to still produce the fudge, but the shipping, I think that when I first started incorporated my business in March, coming up on a year now, in March, and everything was going well. It was a cool time of the year. I was shipped at East Coast, I shipped at West Coast. I was very excited. I hadn't launched my company yet. I launched it on May 19th, which was my birthday. Some people knew that month, a lot of people didn't. But things were rolling, and it wasn't until I really got a gut punch by the shipping. And then I learned a lot about the fudge and the shipping at the same time, where something that really affects fudge is the temperature. So if somebody left it in Arizona and they left it in their mailbox, and they didn't get it right away, they got a mess. So I reshipped it out, or that really was a setback, because it put me in a whole nother mode of there were delays that these happened as well, not just that it melted in the box, but that's how COVID impacted the journey, the delays in shipping. And so now I started to learn how to put in the ice packs and some of the containers that I've used now. I like containers that don't have styrofoam in them that can still hold their value, and that's another part of the journey that I will get to at some point.
We might see you on Shark Tank one day. You were a teacher for 29 years, Mike. Have you been able to lean on some of that skill set?
I was a teacher and a coach, and there have been many things I've told young people to pull them through. And guess what I had to do?
What?
Coach myself. I had to take everything I said to those young people and believe it, and believe it even more. And it compelled me to be a better, I listened to my own advice, and it might sound vain, but I've worked with hundreds of young people over 29 years, and some of them have accomplished breaking a 7-minute mile barrier. Some of them have been state champions. Some of them gone on to be athletic All-Americans, at different levels of their interest.
Yeah.
And some have just been a joy to be around young people, learning the language and taking them through Shakespeare and different experiences. And at some point you hit a wall. Yeah. And then when you hit those walls, it's a scary place to be if you don't have some type of support. And I found out how to be my own support. I still look for others in my life that, when I need some guidance, and it's tough because you're being the strong father, being the strong husband, being the strong, person for so long that you need to, I say this now, I learned how to give from an empty cup. I will no longer do that. I'll now learn to give from a full cup. So,
or at least a half-empty cup.
No, it's got to be full.
You keep it full? You got to leave room
to.
for some of those blessings to come then.
I have to go through my routines. I have to. I have to do my meditation. I have to do my silent time. I have to do my writing. I have to do my workouts. I have to do all those things. And when I don't do those things, I know I'm not the best person I can be or need to be in any given moment. And so.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think that, as we look at the last 5 minutes that we have together, I want to talk about what's next. What's the vision that you have for yourself? Where's Mike's vegan fudge journey going?
My vision is to be able to move pallets of Mike's Vegan Fudge while I am on a beach in the Caribbean.
I love it. I love it.
Or somewhere around the globe when the globe opens up to travel. And that is my vision, and to pass this on as a legacy to my children and to my grandchildren. And that is the larger vision.
Well, it's a great legacy to pass on. And when you pass on that legacy and people think about fudge making, vegan fudge making particularly, and of course with the recipes that you, Mike Jones, have spent all of this blood, sweat, and tears developing, how costly is it as a startup? So if someone wanted to start making your vegan fudge, what kind of equipment is needed? What kind of staff do they need? How many people does it take to?
Well, you are asking me the question right in the middle of all the things that I'm in right now, because this is right where I'm at.
Yeah.
And I'll have that answer for you in the next 2 months.
All right, well, we'll do a part 2. Did you guys hear that?
But to start something, you just have to take the next step.
Yeah.
The reality of what I want to do, it comes in the investment in our communities. I want healthier options on the store shelves, particularly in gas stations. I want there to be a healthier option. I want legislation to say, look, we need healthier options. We can no longer have all the shelves stocked to the brim with high
Sugar and
fructose
salt.
corn syrup. Right, we need to get rid of some of these things, or at least have a balance of what is available. Because some people don't know where food comes from, other than it's in a package, it's on the store, and here's my $5, and here's my soft drink, and here's my chip, and that's my. If it's good enough for lunch, it's good enough for breakfast, good enough for snacks, good enough for all time, and then we have a huge constipation problem because of that.
So legislation for you, would that be coupled with the same kind of legislation that people are seeking for the cannabis industry? This is a hemp protein. Are you going to be looking at infusing some of your vegan fudge with CBD or?
down the line, that is a very big option for me. Right now, it's been an uphill battle because people ask, "Oh, am I going to pass a drug test?" You know?
Yeah.
And
Will they?
even yes, they will take with the hemp protein without a doubt. And with the hemp protein being infused with the CBD, then you add another component to it. And when you add the THC to it, that's when you have to worry about, you know, your job and passing the drug test. But I haven't gotten that far yet. So
One step, one choice, one change. Where did that come from?
just being very simple. And like I said, when I had my hand on that door before I opened up to go into that classroom, I just said, courage versus fear, man. That's what it is.
Interesting, interesting. One step, one change, one choice. And that is Mike's Vegan Fudge Journey. I am so pleased to have brought to you this interview with Mike Jones, who is making Mike's Vegan Fudge by the vat loads. Make sure you taste some when you can. I want to thank you so much for bringing this education and awareness of vegan fudge, Mike's Vegan Fudge. I can't wait to taste it.
Great. Thank you so much for having me, Doris. I appreciate this so much.
You're welcome, and I can't wait for part 2.
Yes, yeah, I'm looking forward to that as well.
We're going to share all those lessons that you learned, bringing this to so many people.
Great.
And I can't wait to bring it to my household because we need it.
I have something for you.
Great. I can't wait to get my sample.
Good.
People are really going to love this product. People are always looking for things that they can do that are just not the typical.